I keep putting off making this video for one reason or another. Mostly just because I'm gonna say something very controversial that I've wanted to say since before the election. That I know for a fact that if this video goes up, there's gonna be a very negative backlash to the things that I say in here, but I don't know, I feel like I have to say it because I don't know. I keep waiting for someone else to say it first so that I can just agree with them. But at least in the circles that I travel, I have yet to hear it said. But I'm telling you this much that as a black man living in America, I'm more excited about Trump getting elected than I was about Obama. And here's why. Because a lot of people talk about Obama and how, look, he got elected. It's a black president. Aren't you so excited? But honestly, like I was so disappointed when he got elected because first of all, unfortunately, when the primaries and all that stuff was going on, I was still only 17. I wasn't allowed to participate yet. By the time I turned 18, he had already got the nomination. And by that point, between him and McCain, no matter what we choose, the nation's going to shit. So that's basically been the story of my life. Just having, I've never, there have been like no candidates I've ever actually seen that I could actually believe in until recently. Now that I started learning about Bernie, he's the first one for the first time this year that I could actually look at a candidate and get excited. Because other than that, we've just been thrown nothing but shit. And people might be like, wait, you're saying bad things about Obama? Are you saying he's a shitty president? I'm not saying that. I just said that he was a shitty choice for the 2008 election because at the time, he wasn't even a real senator. He was an interim senator. Do you know what interim means? He was a fill-in guy. And I felt he was just completely unqualified for the position. And my biggest concern was that he didn't know the game well enough, he didn't know the people, and have the right connections to actually get things done. Sure, he's a progressive leader with a good agenda, but what will he actually be able to accomplish? That was my biggest concern. And so, and like I said, a lot of people talk about, oh, you got a black president, shouldn't you be excited? And I'm like, no, because he didn't get elected despite being black. He got elected specifically because he was black. Because, that's really the only factor that propelled him forward, the fact that he had brown skin. And a lot of people will point to the fact that, look, the president has brown skin, racism's over. But no, how he's the exact same as basically every other president we've ever had in history. Wife, 2 kids, dog, only difference is, oh, his skin's a little bit darker. But because his skin's a little bit darker, that makes him so drastically different. And I mean, if for the and that in itself is a incredibly racist remark because because we have a black president that shows you how different America is. Nope, that showed me how far we still have to come. That you can look at him so drastically differently from all the other people that he's exactly like just because his skin's a little bit browner. And you can see the result. America hasn't gotten any better. We've basically come to a standstill because for 8 straight years you can have a bunch of white people who just say, silly black people always trying to make everything about race. Of course we're not racist. We elected one of you. I mean, there are too many people out there who refuse to listen to you when you say that racism still exists because there are exceptions. Black people are capable of making something with their lives, but it's very rare. They're few and far between. Yes, there are black actors and musicians making millions a year. Yes, there are black politicians who have heavily influencing our policy that affects the daily lives of every American. But these are all exceptions to the rule. For the most part, systematic racism is still heavily in place. And I think, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad about Trump getting elected. Like, I'm not happy that Trump is in power because he's a joke. And he doesn't deserve the office. But him getting elected exposes so many flaws in the current system that we have. A lot of people, I've always known the Electoral College was sucky, but now it seems like everyone is pissed off at it too. And then you've got you can see that there are so many Americans who are actually willing to vote for him just because they've lost all trust in politicians. And I think him getting elected is not necessarily a good thing per se, but I'm more excited about it because him being elected it shows us the flaws that we have and how much further we still have to go. And when I think of Donald Trump, him getting elected, it could end up being a very horrible thing, but I choose to look at it in a positive way, which is, a lot of people will compare him to Hitler, but Hitler was so much more well-spoken than Trump. He was much, much smarter. Hitler, he may have been one of the evilest motherfuckers on the planet, but he was a good leader. And I can't say that about Trump yet. And this also, if you're talking personality-wise, this is an unfair comparison, but regarding the way the country has reacted to this election, the way that we're so split on him getting the other presidency, it reminds me of Lincoln. That's what he reminds me most of all our previous leaders. And that's because, well, first of all, many of you've been fed a false narrative about Lincoln. He was not the great emancipator. He did not give a fuck about the slaves. He really didn't. Lincoln said that he would do whatever it took to preserve the nation. If that meant eliminating slavery, he was willing to do that. But if that meant preserving slavery exactly as it was, he was willing to do that too. And if it meant expanding slavery so it was legal everywhere, he was willing to do that as well. He wanted to do what was best for the nation. He wanted to be a good president. He didn't really care that much about the slaves. Everyone talks about how that was his biggest agenda and whatnot, but really he just, it was one of the biggest issues at the time, but he didn't have too much investment in the slaves personally. He wanted to do what was best for the nation. But the media, because he didn't take a hardline stance in favor of slavery, the media portrayed him as an anti-slavery president. And so when he got elected, the South just completely overreacted and left the Union. And the Civil War ended up starting in order to force them back into the Union. And, the Civil War is one of the biggest mistakes in American history. But, it led to the Emancipation Proclamation. It was made, that was signed specifically as a measure of ending the war. It was a response. It was caused by all this turmoil, which was caused by his election. I can't say for sure that if the Civil War hadn't happened that he never would have signed it. I can't say that for a fact. But I'm saying that it is a fact that it took 5 years of war before he finally did sign that paper. So just look at those facts. If it was that heavily in favor of it, you figure he would have done something a little bit sooner, right? Just saying. Once again, I didn't want to make this video just because some of the controversial things I'm going to say, and there's going to be backlash. I can just feel that. But long story short, Trump, I can't guarantee he'll be the best president ever, but we also can't guarantee he'll be the worst president ever. And in fact, so far from what we're seeing, he's not even showing up for most of the meetings. He's just sitting in his mansion, just scrolling through Twitter and shit. But I don't know what the future brings, but Trump getting elected, it's not the worst thing that ever happened to America, and it's not even the most heated political race we've ever had. And it's just, all we can do is keep fighting and try to do our best not to let it get to this point again, that a man like him actually can be in charge. Because, I honestly am, I was very disgusted at him getting elected. He doesn't deserve it. America deserves a better leader. Like, hell, I'd have been less disgusted if Chris Christie would took over. But not very much less, just slightly less, but still. At least, I don't know. Like, the only good thing you can say about Donald Trump is that at least he's honest. He doesn't believe any differently than most other Republicans, but at least he says it out loud. Anyways, like, that's my stance on what's happened. It's not a good thing, but it's not the end of the world. It's the one good, and I think it can have an overall positive effect. A lot of people are angry right now. You can use that anger to further positivity, to make this world good. We can make America great. Not great again, because let's be honest, it's always been shitty. There's always been racial divide. There's still homophobia rampant. There is so much inequality. America has never been great for anyone except, rich white guys. They're the only ones who have always had it easy. For me, there's never been a better time to be a black man in America than right now, and that's saying a lot, because I'm still scared of every cop that walks by, and I've never committed a crime in my life. But I'm still worried, because, you've seen some of the news stories that have come out this year, and so many of these cops just murdering innocent, unarmed people in the street, and getting absolutely just no punishment for it whatsoever. It's a scary world that we live in. And I think, for me, I can look around and see Donald Trump getting elected now. Other people are starting to be just as scared as I've always been. And maybe for once, we might actually be able to change things. Because people can finally open their eyes to the truth of how bad it really is. That's all I wanted to say.